for fiat digital currency that would allow value exchange to happen in the same way that content and information exchange happen on the internet today. And that launched 2 years ago, and I think grew quite a bit in the first year, and has grown significantly this year as well, about 500% growth. Reaching around 2.8 billion USDC in circulation today. And within the regulated compliant world of digital dollar stablecoins, by far the largest and fastest growing. I think the vision for us is we really want USDC as a protocol to be a standard that can be widely adopted across leading blockchain platforms. Earlier this year, Center Consortium announced this multi-chain initiative. And we had both Circle and Coinbase had a history of working with Stellar on different products and in different services. And as we looked at blockchains that have a mission and a focus on an open financial system, that have a mission and a focus on connecting more people everywhere to make more seamless payments possible. Stellar is a stellar example of that, and so. Very early on, began discussions about how we could do this. Now, as an official chain that is for USDC, there's a whole, I think, a fairly significant set of criteria to achieve that, which I think Stellar, has done. But what this effectively will mean is that USDC will be available as a digital currency on the Stellar blockchain. And then in particular as well, all of the underlying issuing services, the regulated reserve management behind it, and then a broad range of connectivity options to connect the existing banking system, the existing card networks, and others to be able to issue and redeem USDC on Stellar will also become available. And so from a developer perspective, if you're building applications and projects on the Stellar blockchain and you want to utilize USDC, it will be a token that's available, but there's also going to be an increasing number of options for how you can integrate US dollar-based fiat connectivity and associated services into that. So high level, that's what it kind of looks like and means.
Super exciting for us. I mean, USDC brings a new, strong, stable, and engaged USDC asset to Stellar for developers and for end users so that they can make transactions on the Stellar rails. And it also carries the advantage for us, at least, of having this deep global liquidity across countries and platforms. So this makes it an optimal asset for the Stellar network. And also I think that it's important. I always talk about this notion of having competition and innovation on the platform. And I think that this brings greater competition to Stellar by having multiple anchors in regions like the United States. And so it allows for growth and innovation for developers and businesses to leverage these assets and to create new compelling use cases that for retail and enterprise clients. So we really think that this drives the network forward to the next level and puts us at a really important position for growth on the network. So Jeremy, let's talk for a moment about the future opportunities. I think there's lots of questions all the time, and we've been engaged for several months now and talked about what this looks like. But I think people always want to know: is Center thinking about broadening the scope to other tokens based on global currencies?
Yeah, so Center Consortium, just for people who aren't familiar, is really designed to be a governance consortium, a standard-setting consortium, and a community of firms that collaborate on actually building technology for broad-based fiat digital currency use around the world. And that mission was originally anchored in what I like to think of as digital asset markets use cases. Sort of the trading and markets use cases is now very much moving into the payments and settlement use cases. And as stablecoins move more into the payments and settlement use cases, not just in financial applications, but in commerce applications and others, that creates demand for a number of things. One is it creates demand for making sure that USDC can scale that it can scale for payment use cases. And so that means obviously, working to bring USDC as a protocol on a money format to chains like Stellar. I think the second is that these standards and these protocols and all of the governance goes around them. That governance includes, what are the compliance requirements to become an issuer of a fiat digital token? What are the information security requirements to administer and operate a network that's based on that? What are the underlying reserve requirements, the regulatory and licensure requirements? There's a pretty robust set of governance and standards that exist there that Center has really set the bar on. In fact, this week, or in the last week, I should say, the Financial Stability Board issued its report for the G20 on regulatory recommendations for what they call global stablecoin arrangements. The idea being that these arrangements are kind of pulling together a lot of different members, constituents, financial institutions, and setting standards. And Center Consortium is actually really the only operational global stablecoin arrangement in the world today. Libra Association is seeking to do that as well. But as an arrangement that's building more and more focus on commerce and payments that are happening interoperably around the world, we know that individuals and businesses in countries all around the world are going to want to transact, and we see tremendous opportunities to take those governance standards, to take those common technology protocols and apply them to other fiat currencies. And so that's the long-winded answer of yes, Center Consortium does envision introducing other stablecoin implementations. And very likely seeing those come not from Circle or Coinbase, but other members who join Center Consortium and become issuers under the governance scheme. We may find an amazing company in Japan, for example, that wants to issue a yen stablecoin, and so on and so forth. And so it really is envisioned as this scheme and association that can grow as more and more stablecoin native payments and commerce takes place.
I mean, from our standpoint, I look at what you guys have built with Center, and then also obviously with Circle, and the shared mission of the financial inclusion and just really focusing on regional demand is something that's really important to, I think, both of us and the organizations that we lead. So it just makes me so happy that we were able to make this happen together. I also think that just having USDC is going to open up even more opportunities and corridors. We already have some strong corridors open, but the anchor model that we've set up, this strengthens that model and creates opportunities for other use cases on Stellar, but also just for the anchors to become even stronger. So excited about this. I want to, Jeremy, I want to ask you if you could just stay on for a little bit into the Q&A section, because I know that we'll have some questions there. And I'm going to dive in for a few minutes into the Q3 highlights because and then we'll go through the rest of the agenda. So first, I want to say, I think we can all agree that 2020 hasn't been the year that many expected at the start. But in one important way, it has been living up to its promise for SDF and the Stellar network. We're in a stronger, more strategic position than ever before. I think the announcement we just made speaks to that, but also so does many of the accomplishments that we've done and accomplished this quarter. Our team has been heads down and hard at work delivering on our strategic roadmap, ensuring the robustness and usability of the Stellar network, being the blockchain that people know and trust, and fostering sustainable use case. Those are the pillars that we set out a year ago, and we're hyper-focused on ensuring that the work that we do lines up into those. We're going to go into detail on each of these throughout the call, but I just want to call out a few highlights here. To ensure the robustness and usability of Stellar, SDF's engineering team has devoted the bulk of this quarter to preparing important technical upgrades for both Stellar Core and for Horizon, Stellar's API. These upgrades introduce two new features that make it easier than ever for Stellar to connect to the world's financial infrastructure, and major improvements to the architecture of Horizon, Stellar's client-facing API server, and to drive higher performance. So Justin's going to talk more about that in just a few minutes. And we've also been really vocal, and it's sometimes hard because it's all over video, but we've been really vocal supporting our efforts to be the blockchain people know and trust, which is really important to us. This quarter, I had the honor to represent SDF at the U.S. House Financial Services Committee, the FinTech Task Force briefing. called Blockchain Technology, Distilling Its Functions in Financial Services. And Lisa Nestor is going to share a bit more about our external activities shortly. But before I hand things over, I want to spend a little more time on how we're working to foster sustainable use cases. Again, that's one of our pillars that we work towards and that we have our work lined up into. The USDC announcement is clearly one important way that we're doing that. But I want to talk a little bit more about the other ways we're focused on that and how it hinges on our work with anchors. So we talk about anchors a lot. You've probably heard me talk about them during each of these quarterly calls, and I talk about them almost every day at SDF meetings. Our SDF team hears me talk about them constantly because it is the foundational network for Stellar. It's the way to make Stellar really light up. They serve such an important role on the network. They help create the rails that connect global financial infrastructure. In Q3, we worked hand in hand with a number of African anchors to build new products and lay the foundations for future corridors, including Flutterwave, Cowrie, and ClickPesa. With Flutterwave this quarter, we've worked to enable cross-border flows both within Africa and across other continents, starting off with the launch of a West African franc, XOF stablecoin, and associated the on and off ramps as well. And we've also been engaged with ClickPesa, a fast-growing point-of-sale vendor with B2B payment platform in East Africa, to issue a Tanzanian shilling, Kenyan shilling, and Rwandan francs on Stellar and provide interoperability with mobile money. And finally, we continued our work with Cowrie Integrated Systems in Nigeria to open up additional B2B and C2C payment corridors with our other anchors. It's just really it's so awesome to see this happening and to see these corridors open up and light up. All of this progress helps us drive meaningful usage of Stellar, and really that's what our focus is and what our mission is. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Justin Rice to talk through some of the network stats and demonstrate how users and businesses are leveraging Stellar. Justin.
Thanks, Danelle. Hi, everyone. I'm Justin Rice, the head of ecosystem at SDF. I'm going to share some metrics that we've been looking at quarter to quarter. And in general, what we'll see is that network performance remains pretty consistent. The number of accounts on the network increased this quarter to over 4.6 million, which is about 3% growth. There was a small decrease in the total number of payments, about 12 million this quarter versus 13 million last. The number of daily operations and the average daily volume on the Stellar decentralized exchange also dipped a bit. We were curious about those dips, and so we dug into the data a bit using our public BigQuery dataset, which is something I'll mention a couple slides from now. And what we discovered is that they were the result of a decreased usage of two outlier assets, both of which are essentially used for very specific customer loyalty points programs, right? So when we honed in on the assets that are actually used for payments, meaning assets that represent real-world fiat currencies, we noticed a steady increase in volume, and we plan to devise a metric to capture the trajectory of those specific assets to present in future reports. So stay tuned for that. In terms of unique on-chain assets, there are now 8,287 of them, which is a 5% increase. And finally, the network's decentralization remained consistent with Q1 and Q2. There are currently 23 tier 1 validating nodes and about 120 nodes total. We've also got more organizations in the pipeline to join the ranks of the tier 1 validators. And that's because there are just more businesses invested in the network who want to increase their engagement and are also capable of doing so. The big thing in Q3 that we did, final preparations were made for the next version of the protocol, which should hit the network in early Q4. So what's going to be in the next version of the protocol? Stellar is designed to connect the world's financial infrastructure, and we're about to introduce two new features, claimable balances and sponsored reserves, that make it easier than ever to do that. These features have been over a year in the making, and they'll help developers create simpler, better user experiences that really abstract away the complexity of blockchain and that do it without losing any of the advantages of a fast and cheap and permissionless public ledger. So those features, combined with fee bumps, which were introduced in the last version of the protocol, they allow apps and services built on Stellar to appeal to a broader audience because they let them handle Lumen reserve requirements and trust lines, which are kind of two sticking points on behalf of users. And that means that a product that's onboarding users doesn't need to start by educating them about Lumens and trust lines. An anchor that's onboarding users won't need to send them to a third-party crypto exchange to get Lumens to cover reserve requirements. And all that means that apps and services will be able to move everything crypto related to the background. So now you can build an app on Stellar that feels like a regular payment app rather than a crypto payment app. Like all important network-wide settings, protocol version is decided by validating nodes, and we plan to schedule a network upgrade vote early in Q4. We're definitely excited to see what people can build with these new features. Personally, I think it's going to be game-changing. In addition to improvements to the protocol, there were also some other big developments in our tech stack this quarter. The main highlights, we restructured Horizon, Stellar's client-facing API server, and released some general platform updates that drive new functionality. So first, Horizon. Our engineering team built out a new architecture that decouples Horizon from Stellar Core and significantly improves performance. So while the majority of that work is still experimental, it's currently available for testing, and so far, it's working really, really well. What the changes do is that they improve cluster scaling, they reduce the storage requirements of Stellar Core by a factor of 100, and they dramatically reduce the catch-up time required to create a new full history Horizon node. So big picture, after we validate these changes and release a production-ready version, running your own Horizon node to access the network will be a lot easier, which is good both for businesses building on Stellar and for network health and decentralization. The platform updates include a number of launches and a few new initiatives. So first, Stellar Laboratory, an interface that makes it easy to build and submit transactions into query network data, added Protocol 13 support, so now you can take advantage of the fee bumps that I mentioned earlier. We've also started working on a new account viewer that focuses on preventing scams by incentivizing the use of hardware wallets and other key management tools. Basically, we're going to train people not to copy and paste raw secret keys. We've also added capabilities to Kelp, our automated market making bot, to allow better tracking and support more complex trading strategies. And we've developed an ETL data pipeline built on top of Horizon's ingestion system that allows the easy export of Stellar data to tools like Google BigQuery. It enables us to update our public data set every 5 minutes instead of once per day, and anyone can use it to do incredibly sophisticated analysis of network data. Finally, we improved a couple of tools for anchors to make the process of setting up a network on and off ramp a lot quicker and a lot easier. First, we released Polaris 1.0, a reference implementation and Python library that simplifies the process of building an anchor service. Polaris provides modules for the parts of the code base that interface with the network and offers clear methods for developers to integrate their own deposit and withdrawal forms, KYC processes, and banking rails connections, all of which significantly speeds up the anchor integration process. So now it takes weeks instead of months. We've also improved our transfer server validator, which is what anchors use to check their integrations by adding support for the latest cross-border interoperability standard, SEP 31. SEP 31 is what two anchors use to set up a payment corridor, and the ability to verify that everything's working early on in the process prevents a lot of headaches and allows for more focused, efficient development. Tools like these, they really help as we continue to grow the anchor network. That's a look at how we're developing Stellar, but I also want to talk about how we're supporting developers building on Stellar who are leveraging all these great capabilities and features. So this quarter, we launched the Stellar Community Fund 2.0, which is a redesign of the $1 million support program for projects building on Stellar. The Community Fund is a pretty unique grants program. Not only does it give people all over the world a chance to kickstart their Stellar-based projects, but it also gives the broader Stellar community the opportunity to vote on which projects deserve Lumen Awards. So we've run it for a while now. We're always iterating on it. We're always improving on it. And for SCF 2.0, we made two big changes. First, we refined the selection process. We created a nomination panel, which eliminates projects that are technically unsound, and we introduced a new voting system, quadratic voting, that better captures voter intensity. The new selection process, it preserves community participation, which is definitely the cornerstone of SCF, but it also makes the whole experience more engaging and prevents voter fatigue, and it keeps things fair for all the applicants. Second, we split the SCF into two funds. The Seed Fund, which has a larger prize pool, is focused on getting viable and innovative new businesses up and running on Stellar. The Lab Fund, which runs more frequently, fosters experimental use cases, open source software, and real market stress tests. So the Lab Fund is currently in the community discussion phase and will wrap at the beginning of November. The Seed Fund is accepting applications until January 18th. And now I'd like to hand it over to Lisa Nestor so she can share a bit more about our public engagement and marketing this quarter.
Thanks, Justin, and hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here for my first SDF quarterly call. So we've been really busy and vocal this quarter with SDF leaders participating in 11 media interviews and writing 2 op-eds for Cointelegraph. Crypto and blockchain won't catch on until they're actually useful, and it's time for blockchain to prioritize diversity and inclusion. We've also been actively participating in events and hosting some of our own. We presented at 5 external events and conferences and organized 15 virtual events, including 5 engineering talks and 6 events in Spanish. I'd also like to mention that SDF's marketing team began to significantly ramp up content marketing efforts, bringing on a dedicated new content creator headcount, along with the new marketing automation and CMS tool for deploying content marketing campaigns. That helped deliver 14 blogs last quarter, ranging from topics like stablecoins, the future of digital money, and driving inclusion through compliance. On the policy front, SDF continued active engagement on digital asset policy and regulation in the US and internationally through 25 separate meetings with regulators and policymakers, the submission of a comment letter to the Office of the Controller of Currency, and by stepping into leadership roles in various organizations, including the Chamber of Digital Commerce, the World Economic Forum, and the Blockchain Association. SDF met with representatives of the Senate Banking Committee, the House Financial Services Committee, the House Agriculture Committee, the SEC, the OCC, FINRA, and the Federal Reserve Board, and the Inter-American Development Bank. We've been busy. And as Danelle mentioned at the start, she briefed the House Financial Services Committee Task Force on Financial Technology on blockchain technology use cases and financial services. She also joined the World Economic Forum's Global Future Council on Cryptocurrencies, and Seth Hertlein, SDF Head of Policy and Government Relations, joined the World Economic Forum's Digital Currency Governance Consortium. Also this quarter, Candace Kelly, SDF General Counsel, was appointed to the Board of Directors of the Blockchain Association, and Seth Hertlein became a co-chair of the Blockchain Association's Diversity and Financial Inclusion Working Group. And finally, one of the things we've been working on that I'm particularly excited about is Meridian, Stellar's 2nd annual global conference. I have to confess, part of the reason I'm so excited about Meridian is that I will be one of the co-hosts along with Justin, who you heard from earlier. We've got such a great week in the works to share with our community and ecosystem, which is what we've been heads down working on and preparing over the last few months. This quarter, we launched registration and announced key speakers like Reid Hoffman, President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, and Sir Tim Berners-Lee. We're also very excited that Jeremy will be joining us. These speakers are going to share their insights on building networks, using technology and innovation to solve important problems, and how we push the Stellar blockchain mainstream. You can check out the first view of the agenda at meridian.stellar.org, and you can also sign up there for the event. We'll have general sessions on the main stage and breakouts targeted to business and technical audience. For example, I'll be giving a business track presentation, giving a Stellar overview. Since the event is free and virtual, we're doing everything we can to find creative ways to connect with attendees, like devoting one day of the conference to networking, setting up fun side virtual events like a mixology class, and roundtable discussions, which, if you keep your eyes peeled, you can be one of the lucky folks who get to have a one-on-one conversation with Nell and Jed. I can promise it will be great. All that to say, we've got a lot planned for Meridian 2020, and we hope that during Q4's update call, we'll be able to share what a success it was. That does it for me. Lauren, I'll hand it back over to you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Lisa. It is now time for our Q&A section of the webinar, so feel free to drop your questions into the Q&A in the toolbar.
So
we
this
have
was
a couple
pretty
to go
good.
ahead and get started
a lot of
with
great,
now.
lot of great updates.
This first one here is for you, Danelle. So you were mentioning
that
at the
USDC
start
is
some
be
new
awesome.
anchor corridors, particularly in Africa, and folks are interested in whether you are focused on any anchors in any other regions or any other anchors that you're already working with.
Yeah, so I think what's really important about anchors, as we've talked about before, and as I say almost every time I talk about them, is that they are really the glue that really pushes this network and holds it together so that all the other stuff can be built on top of it. So we're really interested in anchors in all regions, but we're particularly focused right now on Africa as well as in Latin America. We have Settle, who is an anchor that is expanding its anchor network in Latin America, and we're focused on Latin America in particular because of Vibrant, which is the wallet that is really launching in Argentina that one of our subsidiaries has built. So I think it's important for us to really think about anchors, though, as like this opportunity to, if there's, we put together a webinar on the benefits and the use cases for anchors. And we did that, I think, last quarter or the quarter before, because we want to hear from you. We do outreach, but we also love to be responsive to folks who are interested in it. So we have a lot of stuff that Justin's team, as well as the marketing team, have put up on the website. So pay attention and check there, and just know that we're interested in all regions, particularly right now focused on Africa and LATAM.
Great, thanks. The next question here is for you, Jeremy. It's what exactly is the on and off ramp experience going to be for USDC on Stellar, or what can people expect? And is Circle targeting any new regions or markets for USDC?
Yeah, so maybe I'll start with the second piece of the question and then come back to the first. On the second piece of the question, I think digital dollar stablecoins like USDC are very much global. And just if we look at the last year, we've seen USDC deployed and used all around the world in over 150 countries, and we see growth in demand not just in the US but in Asia, Southeast Asia, Latin America, Europe, Middle East. So it is already very global, and the user base of it is already very global. And I think there's a great deal, as Danelle mentioned, a great deal of alignment around this vision of how can this play a role in financial inclusion and empowering more people in regions around the world to be able to have access to stable value digital currencies. So very much a global focus. I think in terms of on and off ramps, I think we're going to see lots and lots of them created. The way that the partnership with Circle works in this is USDC for Stellar will be not just a supported token as a version of the protocol on the Stellar blockchain, but Circle offers a broad suite of what we call platform services to developers and businesses. And these include APIs for adding card payment acceptance, bank wire transfer acceptance, domestic bank transfer acceptance. And those then enable kind of instant conversion in and out of the existing kind of fiat rails and USDC. And so effectively, a developer that wants to add the ability to take a debit card and have that settle as USDC on Stellar and use it on a Stellar network can do that with just a couple of very straightforward API calls.
Whoa! Did y'all hear that?
Itself is a platform service, and lots and lots of companies, B2B facing companies, B2C facing companies, fintechs, others can build on those services and integrate that fiat infrastructure with native Stellar support really easily. So I expect to see once this launches, a proliferation of wallet services, exchanges, others that are directly taking advantage of that. The other piece
that's a big one right there. That's going to bring a lot of businesses to the Stellar network.
One of the things that, as part of the multi-chain USDC initiative, Circle has introduced what we call the multi-chain USDC swap API. And that is a service that we're actually offering for free to authorized developers. So you have to kind of qualify for the program, but we expect it to be fairly broadly adopted. And what that allows for is it allows a developer, say you're a Stellar app developer and you want to create a way for people who might already have USDC to be able to instantly basically kind of bring it onto Stellar from an Ethereum token. It gives you an API to be able to do that, and vice versa. If you have a Stellar wallet and you're holding USDC on Stellar, it gives you the ability to say send that USDC to say a DeFi contract on Ethereum. And so that swap API is really powerful and creates some more seamless user experiences and interoperability as well, which is really key, because we do expect that there are many blockchains and they need to have a common way for standards for fiat to kind of work across them. And so that's one of the things that we're trying to support, in addition to the on and off ramp API services that we provide to companies in the ecosystem.
Awesome. That's exciting. While I have you, a follow-up question. slightly related, but is how much USDC will be issued on the Stellar chain at the start, and what do you anticipate for the longer term?
Yeah, so it's a fairly easy answer, which is we don't control that. We ourselves as a financial market infrastructure company, as a financial institution, or Coinbase, similarly, we don't actually control the how much is issued. That's driven by demand. It's driven by people creating applications, businesses, et cetera. And so it's really going to be driven by, people who are creating services that want to integrate this. And that can be, even just using like the swap API, that can be a way for people to convert from existing USDC into Stellar USDC, and that can create issuance. So we don't really have a forecast like that. I mean, I think we're entering into these partnerships and creating these standards with a belief that there are really great ecosystems like the Stellar ecosystem that need this and want this for a variety of use cases, and that demand is what's going to drive issuance. But I think the key thing is that the kind of ability to access low cost, even for businesses, sort of free issuance and redemption services for USDC on Stellar will be there. And so that's really key. So the friction will be reduced significantly, and people will be able to take advantage of that.
Very cool. Thank you so much for that. Justin, this next question is a technical question for you, which is, when do you see SEP 31 being added?
SEP 31 is currently active. It is a spec that explains how two anchors can interoperate to set up a payment corridor by building a set of uniform APIs. Anchors have already integrated it. They're already using it right now to create these payment corridors. And so it's available now. Not only that, but recently Polaris, which is again the reference implementation that anchors can use to set up an anchor service very easily. Polaris also includes SEP 31 support. So if you're an anchor service, you use Polaris, all you have to do is plug in certain values and Polaris will set up a SEP 31 implementation for you. So it's alive, it's active, it's pretty easy to integrate, and it's working now.
Justin, I think that for some people, defining what SEP 31 is, the anchor to anchor part.
Yes, SEP 31 is a spec that allows two anchors to interoperate to build a payment corridor by defining a uniform set of APIs that they build. So basically, you can set up essentially a cross-border payment or a remittance corridor where one anchor takes money from a user and deposits it or gets it directly on the other end to the receiving user's bank account. So it sort of mimics a typical remittance payment flow. User to user is the user experience, but in between the two anchors interoperate to make the payment over the Stellar network. You can do it now.
Thanks, Justin. Danelle, this next one is for you. Some folks are curious about how we are engaging with central banks on how Stellar can maybe serve as the plumbing or help facilitate CBDCs specifically.
Yeah, there are a couple of central banks that we have been working directly with or working with the organizations that are supporting them. And we also are bringing in development teams that can help them because that's part of the work to do that. Most importantly, though, I think that we're spending a lot of time talking to regulatory bodies in different regions just about CBDCs. It's a big acronym that a lot of people throw around, and I think it's important to understand that it's not, the CBDC itself might be easy to issue, especially on Stellar. It's a super easy piece of technology to put out there, but it's figuring out like the connection and how to get the consumers to be engaged with central banks, which normally don't have those relationships with consumers. So they differ from region to region as to how they're thinking about doing that. But we're definitely engaged on this topic. We think it's really important. There are different methodologies to be able to support central banks in that, whether that be having an intermediary from a private company standpoint to help with the distribution, which is something that I think is what some central banks are thinking through. We're talking about a lot of these issues with the regulatory bodies in different regions to be able to help them to understand how to connect up and use the rails that we offer on Stellar and just blockchain generally and how useful that could be. but there are a lot of different hurdles to jump through in advance of it. So we're spending a lot of time on this. We have Jason, who is our COO, he spends a lot of his time focused on this issue because it's something that we want to be able to help others to get right.
Man, Danelle just dropped a nice one there.
Question
that was big.
Here, is
I mean, it feels like they're covering all the bases
Jeremy,
right now.
Now
So
that USDC is going to be on Stellar, are there specific use cases that you're hoping to see people will build around the stablecoin?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the things that was really attractive about the Stellar ecosystem was this commitment to implementing these anchors in all of these markets around the world, and creating the ability to move value across currencies, especially in emerging markets, using crypto native infrastructure, using stablecoins, it's just such a powerful use case. And it's really foundational to even, why I founded Circle in the first place, was a belief that could happen and could happen at scale. And so I think the short answer is we want to see exactly what's being talked about here. We want to see cross currency liquidity and corridors that are built around this to enable those flows to happen, to empower more people to be able to exchange value across borders and with each other. So that is obviously front of mind as the most important use case that we want to see. Obviously, we know like the use cases for stablecoins on blockchains really start to expand out as people build more automation, build other types of financial contracts, start to render other financial services that are composing the underlying stablecoin infrastructure. And so those are things that we'd be hopeful to see, as well as we've certainly seen that on the Ethereum ecosystem. And USDC in DeFi is a huge part of it. It accounts for the majority of stablecoin collateral in all these different DeFi protocols. And so as DeFi grows on Stellar, we'd expect to see those use cases supported by USDC's availability as well.
Great, thank you. So I think we're probably going to take one more question here. And Lisa, you mentioned that you're going to be giving a Stellar 101 overview at Meridian, and we have a question that falls in line with that. Sure. How does the Stellar Lumens, or what role do Stellar Lumens play in cross-border payments?
Sure, yep. Well, at a foundational level, a small amount of Lumens is used anytime somebody's really doing any type of action on the Stellar ledger. So executing a transaction across the Stellar ledger requires, a fraction of a lumen. If you're placing an order to swap two assets on the DEX, a similar type of thing. So there's always kind of small amounts of lumens that are used when you're executing any type of operation on the ledger. But kind of moving up the stack a bit, lumens are the most liquid asset within the Stellar ecosystem. So they serve as a really important entry and exit point to the Stellar ecosystem and the other types of assets and stablecoins we have available. And they're also frequently used as a bridge currency. So if a transaction is being facilitated between Nigeria and Tanzania to do, for example, a corporate payment, oftentimes Lumens is serving as a bridge currency. So we'll look at a transaction that is traded between Naira and Lumens, and then Lumens and shillings. So now, of course, that's kind of dependent. Stellar is flexible, but that's what we often see. So Lumens are right now playing a really critically important role in terms of liquidity for our cross-border payments.
All right, so can everybody just stop the whole wondering if Lumens
I think
are
that means we're
used?
going to wrap it up now. I just want to thank Jeremy. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hopefully it's clear at this
point. It was awesome to be able to tell folks about what we've been working on, and even more awesome when we see it happen. So thank you.
You're very welcome.
And Justin, Lisa, and Lauren, thanks you guys for being here as well. I just want to say,
I think overall this was pretty great. I mean,
what we're focused on
Stellar's been moving forward
of creating equitable access to the global
down the line,
financial system.
and as far as it goes,
and I want you to see all the work that we lined up here. It's really for that purpose. And so we have our three pillars that we're focused on. That's all to drive to that mission. And I want to thank you guys all for being interested enough to be able to attend this, and stay healthy, stay well,
and not to feel as if it's a crypto app that they're using, but basically just a payment app. So I think this was a great success. Very happy with what I heard today. Jeremy is what I would consider a major player in the crypto space. Circle's been leading the way. his USDC has been growing in adoption. So I think this is going to be huge. I think this is great for Stellar and what they're doing. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I'll definitely be tweeting out throughout the day some more updates, anything I can find for you. I'll continue to share. But other than that, I'm out.